So once we have the data sets and have identified the main drivers and impacts and gather all the main stakeholders, we will work building a global community of practice on sustainable phosphorus management and developing a monitoring and assessment approach. So Anna Doser is our co-lead in Component 2. She is a freshwater ecologist specializing in understanding patterns and changes in biological communities as indicators of environmental stress. Before I welcome you, Ana, I'll say it in Spanish. Bueno, hemos visto cómo va a ser el componente 1 y una vez que tengamos el set de datos, hayamos identificado los principales impulsores e impactos, pero además hayamos reunido a las principales partes interesadas, a los socios del proyecto, vamos a trabajar en la construcción de una comunidad global de práctica sobre la gestión sostenible del fósforo y vamos a desarrollar un enfoque de seguimiento y evaluación. Nuestra co-líder del componente 2 es Ana Doser y ella es una ecóloga de agua dulce, se especializa en comprender patrones y cambios en comunidades biológicas como indicadores de estrés ambiental. So welcome to you, Ana.
Thank you, Natalie. I will just try and share my screen. Just let me know if you can hear me and see my screen.
And we see your screen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so Natalie said I'm co-lead of Component 2 along with Brian, who we've heard from a lot today, so needs no further introduction. There we go, just try and move the slide along. Okay, so I'll give you a introduction to Component 2, which has got 3 key outputs. I'll explain each of the outputs and how we hope that you'll be able to engage with the activities and as we work towards our goal of optimizing phosphorus emission reduction programs to benefit lake basins. So the work areas address some of the key recommendations from the World Water Quality Alliance white paper and many of the other challenges that have been highlighted in the talks that we've heard from so far. So the first part is to convene the global community of practice on sustainable phosphorus management in lake basins. Secondly is a production of 2 sets of tools, a framework setting out how we can reach net zero phosphorus, and a monitoring and assessment approach that will help people put the framework into practice in their own local contexts. Thirdly, we have the production of a global baseline of phosphorus emission reduction programs for lakes. We'll also be facilitating a range of knowledge exchange opportunities as part of this output. Moving on to the global community of practice. So we aim to bring together all practitioners working in lake basins towards our shared goal. And as Brian mentioned, there's already existing communities, those working in sustainable phosphorus management, working to reduce phosphorus emissions from the land, for example, from wastewater treatment or agricultural practices. And then we've got the community of lake restoration, lake management. So we're aiming to bring people together to look at lake basins holistically. We're looking for a broad membership with a global reach. We want to bring together those with a wide range of experience, whether that's relating to science and research areas, practical land management, governance and policy. The members could be from a range of organisations, from research institutes, environmental regulators, governments, commercial organisations, and the idea is that the community of practice is united together in our aim for net zero phosphorus, resulting in healthy lakes. And the uPcycle team will convene this group so that members can engage with the different uPcycle activities and take part in knowledge exchange. We're starting this right away. You've kindly signed up to this meeting, and we'll be following up and inviting you to join the community of practice. Moving on to the framework, which Brian neatly summarised earlier on. So the framework is setting out the conceptual model and the key processes and elements that we need to understand and to action in order to achieve net zero phosphorus. So it sets out how we will include the recommended actions from the World Water Quality Alliance white paper. It will ensure that the phosphorus reduction programmes focus on the areas most responsible for freshwater and coastal degradation. It will facilitate broad thinking to consider spatially integrated lake district. As Brian mentioned earlier, we'll be looking at developing a set of key indicators to demonstrate success. We're looking to broaden thinking to appreciate the multiple benefits of sustainable phosphorus management, which has also been touched on a lot in the talk so far today. So we need the community of practice to work with us on this. The community of practice will be the end users of the framework, so we'll need you to be a sounding board for ideas and questions, just as you're doing today in the chat, on all these topics as they arise during the development of the framework and the tools. And we'll be looking for input from subject matter experts to help develop the different parts of the framework, for example, on the indicators. Moving on to the monitoring and assessment approach. So this will be the toolkit that will enable phosphorus emission reduction programs, lake restoration, to put the framework into practice. We've drawn on some recently developed resources to give an example of what works well and the kinds of tools that we're thinking about. So we anticipate that the monitoring and assessment approach will provide similar resource to these examples here. We've talked about the EU Merlin project already, and one of the outputs from that programme is the development of a monitoring and assessment framework using standardised methods, indicators and reporting tools for assessing freshwater and wetland restoration. And UKCEH is working as one of the demonstration case studies, so we've got experience as being end users of this toolkit. I've also linked here to an IUCN Urban Toolkit, which brings together relevant resources in a convenient guide. So it's about curating useful resources. In the monitoring assessment approach, we aim to highlight the logic chains between the environmental pressures, the targets and the indicators to the in-practice monitoring approaches. Like the toolkit example, the uPcycle resource will bring together existing ranges of approaches and tools into one place, adapt them to be relevant to the uPcycle framework, and if we are identifying gaps, new approaches may need to be created. So in this case, we need the community of practice to feedback on what tools do you use, what tools do you need in order to carry out your work. Work with us to test methods and approaches in your global context, take part in the knowledge exchange activities that we organise and help us to co-design the approaches. And throughout this, we'll be ensuring and demonstrating equality of participation in the activities. And the third part of this component is a global baseline assessment. This is an assessment of present-day phosphorus emission reduction programs for lakes, taking stock of what different approaches there are in use and where they are. We'll assess the costs and benefits of the different approaches. And the aim is that the output of this assessment will help to motivate people to implement the new policies, new programs and investments, ultimately resulting in more sustainable phosphorus management. And in order to develop this, we'll need to draw on the real lived experience of the community of practice. Other knowledge exchange activities that will be run alongside this to complement the baseline assessment, similar to the Merlin's seminars. We'll be running a series of open seminars on a range of topics. This could be from things like aquaculture, climate change, wastewater treatment, green finance. We're really looking to the community to guide us on what they need and also what expertise they can share to deliver these seminars. The knowledge exchange will also share case studies of successful emission reduction programs, sharing lessons learned. Part of this component also is to arrange field visits to case study sites where attendees will be able to see firsthand how sustainable phosphorus management has been achieved. And for those who are not attending in person, they'll benefit from learning resources that we'll create from the field visits. We will also be making sure that the legacy of the resources and the momentum of the community will be carried on beyond the life cycle of the uPcycle project itself. So how can you be involved in this part? So offer your expertise to speak at the events and share your knowledge and experience. Do attend all the activities that we're arranging and let your colleagues know and encourage them to attend as well. So the framework and the monitoring and assessment approach will be developed throughout this year and published at the end of 2024. The knowledge exchange activities will be happening throughout this year and the next year. The development of the global baseline will be prepared throughout 2024-2025 and published in the summer of next year. So we really hope that lots of you will join the community of practice and get involved. There's lots of ways that you can share your expertise with us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna.